The nights grow eerily quiet, and the world as you know it is coming to an end. Daylight is no longer safe. The sun, now an angry, scorching force, makes stepping outside deadly. Skin blisters under even a moment's exposure. It's a relentless, punishing heat that even walls can barely shield you from. Did they tell you it's the last days? Your neighbor whispers, appearing at your door one night, his face pale and worn. Strangers walk among us, now beasts in human skin. You'll need others, but trust no one. That night, you sleep with a knife under your pillow, wondering who or what might come knocking. The next morning, news reports echo what you already know. Record-breaking temperatures, rising solar flares. Officials warn to stay indoors. The anchor's face thinly veiling their fear. FEMA issues orders to avoid direct sunlight and look for signs of abnormalities among survivors. As the day drags on, even with fans running, the heat is stifling. Every breath feels heavy, and you feel drained just moving through the house. By afternoon, a knock on the door pulls you from your sweltering daze. It's a tall man, gangly and awkward, offering a nervous smile. "It's hell out there," he says. "They kicked me out of a shelter. Didn't get along with the others. Can I stay here, just for the night?" He's polite enough, but something in his gaze feels off. You consider the warnings and the sun's unrelenting glare through the drawn curtains. Reluctantly, you agree, all too aware of how lonely the house feels. A few hours later, there's another knock. This time, it's a woman, pale and sweating, her hands nervously wringing. Thank you," she gasps, stepping inside. She seems fragile, almost jittery, and you wonder what she's hiding behind that strained smile. As night falls, you watch them carefully. Are they what they seem? The morning news rattles with more shocking updates. Rumors of visitors circulate, creatures hiding behind flawless white teeth, perfectly clean nails despite the grit outside. Some witnesses claim these intruders blur in photographs, as if something inhuman is trying to mimic humanity. The tall man talks openly, laughing and sharing stories that make little sense. The nervous woman, however, glances at the windows, wincing at the slightest noise. "Do you know what's really happening?" you ask her. "I've heard. They're from underground. The sun, something about it brought them up here. People say they wear skin suits, disguises." Her voice drops to a whisper. "They could be anyone." That evening, you inspect their teeth, their hands, their eyes. The tall man has yellow-stained teeth and glares when you ask. The woman's teeth, however, are perfect, almost too perfect. She says they're veneers, but you wonder, can you trust her? The next night, you're woken by a chill down your spine. Outside your window, standing under the dim porch light, is a man grinning ear to ear. He looks like someone who stepped out of a nightmare, too wide a smile, eyes too dark, and a strange tilt to his head. He raises a hand in greeting. "Hello there. I see you're not alone," he says, glancing at the window. Always wise in times like these. "So, are they friendly?" You swallow the lump in your throat, barely able to respond. Before you can gather the courage to ask his name or his reason for being there, he walks away into the shadows, his laughter hanging in the air. The next day, the nervous woman refuses to leave her room. "He's here," she whispers. "I saw him. He's the one bringing the creatures. He'll take us all." Her words make no sense, but her fear is infectious. The tall man, meanwhile, scoffs. "Superstitions. Just stay indoors and you'll be fine." Yet his calm facade falters when you mention the man's unsettling smile. By now, news broadcasts are scattered, broken by static. The anchor's voices tense as they report on FEMA's testing efforts. Another knock comes that night, a woman carrying a frail figure, wrapped in a thick coat despite the heat. Please, just for a night. She looks exhausted, her hands trembling as she places the bundle down. That night, the nervous woman watches them with unblinking eyes, whispering about creatures that wear the faces of the dead. But can you trust her? Or anyone? You wake to more reports, new signs of the visitors, they say. Bloodshot eyes, sun-scorched skin, dirt under their nails. FEMA promises to screen everyone soon, but it feels more like a weak reassurance. Taking a chance, you inspect the recent guests. The widow's eyes are red, but she insists it's from crying. The tall man's nails are pristine, though his explanation feels thin. The nervous woman mutters that she's seen the truth. But who is the real threat? Night brings more paranoia. Outside, you hear a scream, then silence. You resist the urge to peek outside, afraid of what you might see. The tall man warns. Careful who you keep close. Visitors like to kill in the dark. Another knock FEMA agents in hazmat suits. They demand a test subject from your house, taking the widow with them. You want to protest, but can't. Their weapons say they aren't asking. Later, a man with a sharp gaze and a ragged suit appears, claiming to be a hunter of the visitors. I've seen them up close, he hisses. They're not like us. They're clever, but I can help you. Can you trust him? Or is he yet another visitor in disguise? One last warning on the news. If you take a photo of a visitor, they'll appear blurred, distorted like a shadow. Desperation mounting. You take photos of each guest under the guise of preserving memories. The widow's image comes back perfect, the nervous woman's faintly blurred, the tall man's too clear. That night, chaos erupts outside. The smiling man is back, standing among the flickering lights, his gaze fixed on your houses. Behind him, bodies lie scattered, twisted in the moonlight. He doesn't knock this time, only watches with that sinister grin. The tall man glances out, muttering, "It's him. He's the one in charge. He decides who lives and who dies." The knocks come again this time, a FEMA team demanding someone else for testing. They leave with the nervous woman, who pleads to stay. But you let them take her, unable to shake the feeling she was hiding something. As the night deepens, you can feel something clawing at your mind, twisting your thoughts. You start to question everyone and everything. Who can you trust? Is anyone left to trust? Alone in the house, the last night stretches on, your mind racing. Every footstep sounds like a threat, every creak like a stranger. With no one to trust, you've never felt more alone. You look through your window one last time, the smiling man is gone, and in his place, a haunting silence. The last broadcast cuts off mid-sentence, leaving only static. You realize there's no one left to help. Were the visitors monsters, or just the fears you let creep into your mind? Were FEMA and the smiling man saviors or oppressors? In this game, trust is the deadliest weapon of all. Have you noticed? It's helping us. Or so they say. Smoking out the visitors from the ground, they claim. These visitors, or whatever they are, came from the depths, and now FEMA says they're working to push them back. But isn't that the way it always is? An us versus them battle. This time, however, it feels different. They're saying this is the end for the visitors, not us. Maybe even the end for everything, depending on who you ask. People are quick to point fingers, though, and it's usually at each other. Some say it's humanity that's to blame, that greed and selfishness have finally led to this breaking point. What difference does it make if we can make a little money from the chaos? Maybe that's all some of us know. But all bad things must end, don't they? Perhaps this is humanity's end too. Still, there's a glimmer of hope. After all, humanity has faced countless disasters. We've come back from the edge time and again, fighting for survival when all seemed lost. People say the end will come when everyone turns on one another, when our very instincts turn us into enemies. Are we really that close? Are we really about to reach that breaking point? So, what's FEMA doing about it all? The Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known as FEMA, is in charge of the government's effort to fight these visitors. They're supposed to be the line of defense. But how much do we really know about what they're doing? Officially, FEMA is here to protect us, to handle this outbreak. But their methods feel invasive, authoritarian, even cruel. When they knock on your door, they aren't just coming in to check on you. They're there to take someone anyone may choose. Apparently, they need to test for radiation exposure. But that's odd, isn't it? If the visitors come from underground, why check for solar radiation? Is that just a cover to keep us from asking too many questions? Maybe they're lying to protect us from the truth. But if that's the case, what are they so afraid of? They arrive in hazmat suits, supposedly to guard themselves from solar radiation, or so they say. But here's the kicker: the sun doesn't hurt us. At least, not those of us who are normal. People are burning alive under its rays, they say. But regular humans like us can still walk around safely in the daylight. So who are these suits really meant to protect? What is FEMA really afraid of? They're clearly not here to keep us safe from sunlight. No, the suits must be to guard against something else. Something more dangerous. Something infectious. FEMA doesn't exactly inspire warm feelings in the people they're meant to protect. They're quick to take people for testing, and even quicker to send them to quarantine camps. They say they're hunting the visitors, but it feels like we're the ones being hunted. They're taking people, refusing to help those in need, and enforcing brutal restrictions. People like the widow blame FEMA, saying they let her husband die. In this world of fear, they've become a symbol of oppression, a vision of authoritarian control. It feels hauntingly familiar, doesn't it? It reminds us of recent years when we were all isolated, hidden behind our walls, and our lives were governed by fear of infection. The government imposed strict crackdowns, ineffective yet relentless. And in this game, that world echoes back at us, distorted and hauntingly similar. People are trapped indoors, watching as others become threats, symptoms emerging that no one understands. Each character in this story represents a different side of humanity in disaster. Some are terrified, paralyzed by fear, crying as the world collapses around them. Others grow greedy, focused only on their own survival, viewing everyone around them as a potential resource or threat. And then there are those who try to hold on to hope, who believe in helping others, even when everything seems lost. But survival in this world means tough choices, and sometimes even hope can be a weakness. Here's an expanded version of the script. I added detailed descriptions, emotional depth, and more exploration of the themes, aiming for an engaging, suspenseful tone. This should bring you close to the 2,500-word mark. Do you really think it's helping us? Look closely. Can't you see how it's driving the visitors out from below? These aren't normal intruders. They're emerging from deep within the ground. But this is their end, not ours. They're fighting for survival in a world that isn't theirs anymore. And honestly, I don't care about the morals here. People blame everything and everyone, but it's the end of the world for them, not us. And if we make a bit of money off the chaos, what difference does it make? In the end, humanity caused this mess. It's time to face that. But how did it get so out of control? People have been asking questions, but the answers don't seem to satisfy. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, has been put in charge of combating these visitors. But what does that mean? When the agency knocks on your door, they're polite enough at first. They say they need to test for solar radiation, but why would they come to your house, suited up as if they're expecting an outbreak? Why the hazmat suits? Are they afraid of something more than radiation? Maybe the suits are just a cover to avoid scaring us or worse, to keep the visitors from catching on. But if the suits aren't for radiation, what are they hiding from? The people who've seen FEMA's work up close are the first to question it. Many claim that FEMA isn't doing its job well, treating regular citizens as if they're just as dangerous as the visitors. The agency rounds people up, pushes them into quarantine camps, and barely gives them a say in the matter. When they first started these camps, they insisted it was all in the name of safety to protect us. But they're strict, brutal, even with those who need help. There's a widow who says her husband would still be alive if FEMA had helped her sooner. Their tactics are cruel, and they operate with the authority of a government grasping for control over a disaster that seems far beyond their reach. This feels strangely familiar, doesn't it? Like a distant echo of what we went through in the pandemic. Back then, everyone was locked inside their homes, afraid to step out or be seen. The government issued lockdowns, imposed harsh restrictions, and tried to contain something they didn't fully understand. Now it's happening again. But this time it's not a virus, it's visitors. People have been noticing the parallel. Just like the pandemic, these outbreaks of visitors are met with strict controls, confusion, and fear. And just like before, we see different sides of humanity. Some people give in to fear, crumbling under the weight of the unknown. Others become apathetic, not caring what happens as long as they're safe. Some grow cruel, looking to profit or gain something from the chaos. But there are also those who still try to help, to see the good in each other, even when everything seems hopeless. The game mirrors our own reactions to disaster. But unlike in the real world, here, the stakes are much higher. Either humanity comes together, or we perish, one by one. There's a strange line spoken by one of the characters that sticks with me. The dead will come and tell, and he will not be believed. It's unsettling, isn't it? Almost like something from the Bible. It reminds me of a passage about how the dead will hear the voice of God and rise, each facing judgment. Could it be that these visitors are the damned, rising from the depths to exact vengeance? Are they here to test us? To remind us of something we've lost? It sounds almost too strange to believe, but there's something undeniably dark and supernatural about them. Some think the visitors are a modern take on vampires. Like in folklore, they need permission to enter our homes and seem to have a unique fear of the sun. But not in a literal sense. It's as if they're terrified of the sun's symbolic power, light, goodness, something divine that's beyond their reach. They don't come during the day, and they don't walk openly. They're creatures of darkness in every sense. Russian mythology may hold a clue. In Russia, there's a vampire figure known as the Uper, a spirit who rises to haunt its own family. It doesn't go out to attack strangers, it goes after its loved ones, those it once cherished. When I think of these visitors in that light, they seem less like monsters and more like remnants of the people we once were. They could be our own sins coming back to haunt us, needing permission to enter, drawn to the places they used to call home. Imagine the terror of that realization. These visitors may represent humanity's darkest instincts, rising from our depths to claim us. They're a constant reminder of the cost of sin, of how easy it is for us to fall into darkness. They've come back not as strangers, but as twisted reflections of our own humanity. In the game's so-called neutral ending, things get even darker. If both visitors and humans die in your house, you're cast out, banished. You've let too much violence in, and now you're seen as a threat. You're too dangerous to stay, so you're forced out into the unforgiving sun, left to wander in exile. You allowed sin into your home, and now you pay the ultimate price. It's a chilling reminder that, in the end, no one escapes judgment, not even those who think they're fighting for good. The end will come when every human being becomes an enemy of the others. This line hits home in the game. It suggests that to survive, we must stand together, even as fear and chaos try to tear us apart. It's a warning, a plea for unity. The visitors aren't just hunting us, they're tempting us to turn against each other, to distrust, to fear. They thrive on division, on people breaking away from each other. Only by sticking together can we hope to survive. But that's easier said than done. The game's apocalyptic themes go even deeper, with clear nods to the biblical book of Revelation. We see people hiding in their homes, scared of what's out there. Fires rage uncontested, just like the wildfires in the Bible's prophecy. There's a strange, bold man who speaks cryptic words, almost like one of the two witnesses sent to warn humanity. Every sign hints that we're approaching the end of days. As players, we're left to wonder, is this truly the apocalypse? Are these visitors an army of the damned, led by the devil himself? Are we doomed to be crushed under their weight, victims of our own sins and failings? Or is this just a clever metaphor, a grim reminder of how we handle crises, and how easy it is to lose our humanity in the face of fear? Each visitor you let into your house represents a different reaction to disaster. Some will be apathetic, some cruel, others fearful or compassionate. The variety is endless, and it's a haunting reminder that, in real life, we react to crises in countless ways. The question is, which path will you choose? Will you let fear and suspicion drive you? Or will you keep helping others, even if it puts you at risk? And then there's the smiling man, an entity who seems almost like the devil himself. Unlike what you might expect from movies, he can't enter your heart without an invitation. He tempts, he persuades, but in the end, it's your choice. Sin may be tempting, but it's still your decision to let it into your home. If your house becomes filled with visitors, it's because you chose to let them in. This is the nature of evil. It needs our permission to thrive. There's something almost vampiric about these visitors. They don't just attack. They need you to open the door for them. Like vampires of old, they represent something twisted and forbidden, lurking just beyond the safety of our homes. And just like those ancient creatures, these visitors are a mirror of ourselves, a warning of what we become when we let darkness rule us. FEMA may think they have this under control, but even their suits and quarantine camps can't contain what's happening. The agency tries to keep us safe, yet they lie to us, hide the truth, and exert control that only pushes people further into fear and suspicion. Their presence only fuels the growing divide among us, and the visitors know it. In this game's world, the fate of humanity rests on a razor's edge. Will we come together, overcoming our fear and distrust? Or will we tear each other apart, doing the visitors' work for them? It's a chilling question, and one that has no easy answer. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this deep dive into the game's themes, consider supporting the channel. My patrons get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes looks, and more. To everyone already supporting, thank you so much. Your names are on the screen now. And to all of you, remember, don't let your guard down, especially when you're alone in the dark. Sometimes, it's not the darkness that's the problem. It's what lurks within it, waiting for those who are lost.